How's it going, everybody? Of course, this is your boy Jason here on behalf of the Cowpart Bros. Not today on behalf of my co-host Terrence. This is all me. This is, of course, the next installation of the Cowpart Bros monologues, which, if you recall, there was one done before by myself. And just as a reminder, basically, this is where either one of us, either me or Terrence, will just jump on. We'll record something just to talk about whatever subject we want to talk about, and we don't necessarily want to talk about it on the actual show, but we still want to talk about it and get out there to the people. So, what I am going to talk about today, of course, with it being Tuesday, is basically the start of the Major League Baseball playoffs that start today. So, we're going to talk about that a little bit, give a little bit of a small regular season recap, go into the playoff matchups, and I will give my personal predictions on who is going to win the 2021 World Series. So, stick around for that. May not be who you think I'm going to say it is. So, FYI. But anyway, so again, the regular season ended this past Sunday, October 3rd. So the playoffs are all set. The 10 teams are all set to go. So just so you all know, the 10 teams are in the playoffs. From the American League, it's going to be the Tampa Bay Rays as the American League East Division winner, the Chicago White Sox as the American League Central winner, the Houston Astros as the American League West champions, and the two wildcard teams who are playing tonight from the American League are the New York Yankees and the Boston Red Sox. All right. From the National League, the National League East champion, the Atlanta Braves are in. The National League Central Milwaukee Brewers are in, as well as the National League West San Francisco Giants are in. Now, the wild cards game from the National League is going to be the Los Angeles Dodgers and the St. Louis Cardinals. So again, the playoffs, all that starts tonight. Again, with the American League wildcard game, the Yankees versus the Red Sox. That game, I believe, is in New York. Um, so with that, actually, let me double check that. I didn't look at that. Actually, it's in Boston. So the game's in Boston. So that game's tonight. It should be a good matchup. I'm sure it's one that Major League Baseball was happy to have, given the huge rivalry involved with those two teams, and it's a one-game situation. Whoever wins that game moves on to the playoffs and to play an actual playoff series in the National League division, or rather the American League divisional series. So definitely that's on 8 p.m. Eastern tonight on ESPN, of course. Can't wait for that to happen. But before we get to the playoffs, let's step back a little bit, look at the regular season a little bit. So I mentioned the division winners and the teams in the playoffs. I'd have to say the team that probably was the biggest surprise when the year started, I have to say, would be the San Francisco Giants. And not to say that no one thought they would be a good team, but looking at the National League West, people probably thought the Los Angeles Dodgers were going to be, the kings of that division again. I mean, the defending world champions. They actually made some trades back in August at the trade deadline to get their team better with Max Scherzer, Trey Turner, things like that. Um, so, so the fact that the Giants came out and not only win the division, but they came out and won 107 games, folks. And the Dodgers won 106, so they're right there. But the Giants winning 107, that was probably one of the biggest surprises, I'd say, of Major League Baseball. If I had to pick a positive surprise from the American League West, um, honestly, or excuse me, not the American League West specifically, but the American League, I'd I'd have to say there maybe wasn't any, maybe the Mariners, but they weren't a bad team last year. Um, so I don't think there was any surprises in a good way. Going on a more disappointing side, two of them stick out in my head. One is the San Diego Padres. So I mentioned the Dodgers last year were the kings of the National League West. Well, last year also the Padres were maybe not quite as good as the Dodgers, but they were a contender to win that division. So I'm sure going into this year, I know going into this year, people were expecting big things of them. Well, they disappointed a little bit. They weren't looking so bad early, but they fell off. They finished with only 79 wins, third place in the division, and completely missing out on playoffs at all. No playoff rounds, no wild card, nothing. They're just out of the playoffs. And they have a lot of young talent there. Spend a little bit of money in the offseason to pay some of these players. So definitely they are a disappointment there. The Mets also, I'd have to say, is another one. They were actually, I believe, winning the division like with about the halfway point of the season around the All Star break. But things changed. And also the team that won the division, the American National League East, was the Atlanta Braves, and the Braves suffered a major injury to their best player, who suffered a season-ending injury and missed a good portion of the season. So everyone thought, oh, for sure, the Mets are going to hang on, so forth. And they only finished with 77 wins. And the Braves, of course, went on to win the division, as I mentioned. So I'd put them probably in the two spot when it comes to the most disappointing. In the American League, kind of again, I don't really think there's a disappointment. Maybe the Cleveland Indians. I know they were a huge division threat last year. Same with the Twins in a way. They were they yeah, those two were division contenders last year, and they just didn't show up. Both of them finishing below 500. Indians 80 wins, Twins 73. Of course, the White Sox winning the division there. So um, but yeah, but overall, the team that finished with the best record, as I mentioned, was the San Francisco Giants with 107 wins in the National League, and the team with the most wins in the American League was Tampa Bay with 100. There were only three teams to win 100 games, which is still a lot. The Giants, as I mentioned, with 107, the Dodgers with 106, and again the Rays with 100. There were several 90 win teams. Um, no need to name them all out. I think we all can figure that out as well. Um, Impressively, four of the teams in the American League East won at least 90 games. So that's pretty well. That's a lot. That's a lot. That usually doesn't happen to have four teams in the same division be good. In this case, be that good. I mean, the Blue Jays, who finished fourth in the division, only missed the playoffs by one game. So they were that close to being in the wildcard game. Came out the last day, even though they won, the teams in front of them also won as well. So yeah, that's definitely a good division. Uh, no arguments about that. Uh, if I had to be the converse of that, I'd have to say the worst division is the National League East. Again, I mentioned the Braves won that division with 88 wins, which isn't horrible. The Phillies right behind them had 82, but the rest of the division had a losing record, with the worst team having 65 wins. So they weren't the worst team in the league, of course. That title actually would belong to the Arizona Diamondbacks and the Baltimore Orioles, uh, only winning, where was it, 52 games. So, yeah, they both lost 100 games, 110 games each. The Rangers lost 102. So, there you go. Now, let's go into the playoffs. That's what we all logged in for this. We want to talk about the playoffs. Looking forward, not backwards. So again, I mentioned tonight the Yankees are playing the Red Sox in the first wild card game of the playoffs. One game and you're out. So whoever wins that will move on to play the Tampa Bay Rays in the American League, one of the American League divisional series. Um, so I for that game, as much as I would love to see the Yankees lose, I still think even though they're on the road that they're going to win that game. I have a feeling that the power in the lineup's going to overcome um, in that game in particular. It may not be a blowout. It might honestly, it's probably gonna be a game of like 5-4, 3-2, something like that. But I see the Yankees winning that again, unfortunately. But is what it is there. Tomorrow will be the National League wildcard game between the Dodgers and Cardinals. Now the game's in Los Angeles, of course. Now I know I have a lot of friends and people that I know that are Cardinal fans, so I'm sure they're not going to want to hear this. The Cardinals ended the season on a pretty good run. They had won 17 games in a row before they lost a game to the Brewers. I think they won the series overall. So they had a little bit of hot streak going. I don't believe they won the series against the Cubs when they ended the year, but they didn't end the regular season on the win. But that doesn't always matter. But sorry, Cardinal fans, I hate to say this, but I don't think they're going to beat the Dodgers. I think the Dodgers are just really too good. I mean, in a one game situation, you never know, but I am going to put it on the Cardinals, or rather the Dodgers, to win that. That's going to be a good matchup. The pitching matchup is Adam Wainwright versus Max Scherzer. Anybody who's a baseball fan knows that that's a pretty good matchup to watch. Adam Wainwright obviously is an experienced pitcher, so he's been there before. So I'll help the Cardinals maybe pull out an upset. I'm still going to go with the Los Angeles Dodgers. On Thursday, we have the Chicago White Sox facing the Houston Astros. So, in that game, we are going to have a pitching matchup of Lance Lynn for the White Sox and Lance McCullers Jr. For the Astros. So, the battle of the Lances. Hashtag Sir Lance-a-lot. The game's in Houston, of course. Now, these two teams weren't too far apart in the overall win column. Astros had 95, White Sox had 93. Um, when they played each other, unfortunately, the White Sox they played 7 games against each other. The Astros won 5. Now, obviously, that was months ago. I believe that was back in June when they played. So it's been a while. It might have been August as well. So that's been a while. So the team's a lot different between now and then. I know the White Sox had a few key injuries when it comes to the team. I think both of those guys weren't available for that Houston series, or at least not all of it. I'm talking about Luis Robert and Eloy Jimenez. Um, Overall, I'm not going to just pick the one game. I'm going to pick a winner of that series, and I am going to go with the Chicago White Sox. I feel like, on paper, of course, we haven't played any games yet. On paper, I feel like the Chicago White Sox starting pitching rotation, the 4-man rotation of Lance Lynn, Carlos Rodon, Dylan Cease, and Lucas Giolito, I feel like they are the best starting 4-man rotation going into the playoffs for these teams, at least in the American League. I'd probably put them second overall, perhaps behind the Brewers. Maybe, yeah, I relate the Brewers. I think it's the Brewers and White Sox were the best pitching as far as the 4-man rotations going into the playoffs. So I think that's going to overcome versus Houston. Now, Chicago hasn't played well on the road by comparison to home. They weren't horrible on the road. I believe they were like 40 and 41, something like that. So again, not terrible by any means, but not the best. But all they had to do is win one on the road and win their home games. So, not and obviously Houston's not going to fight that, not have that happen. But I'm still going to pick the Chicago White Sox to win that series, move on to the American League Championship Series. Also on Thursday, Tampa Bay will play their first game against whoever wins the American League Wild Card game, which, as I mentioned, will be the Yankees. Now, for that series, Tampa Bay versus the Yankees, I'm going to pick Tampa Bay. We saw the last series of the year that Tampa Bay and New York played was each one of their teams' last series of the season. The Yankees were actually in a position where they needed to win that series in order to firmly secure them getting into the wild card game, and obviously they did because they're there. But in that series, Tampa Bay took 2 out of the 3 games, and that series was actually in New York. So they were at home. The Yankees were, but yet they couldn't quite pull out a series win to further secure their wild card chances. Again, they got in, but that's thanks to some people losing in the 2 days before. That's final game on Sunday, which the Yankees won. But given that the Yankees couldn't even win a series that they had to win versus Tampa Bay, who really had nothing to play for other than ruining the Yankee season, I am going to go with the Tampa Bay Rays. I think both pitching rotations aren't the greatest, but I think with Tampa Bay having the home field and already knowing that they've beaten the Yankees for the regular season series, including the last one of the year, I'm going to give them the edge there. So moving on to another series that I believe starts on Friday. Actually Thursday. Let me go back here. Starts on Wednesday. Yep, is Milwaukee versus Atlanta. As a kid, I was a big Braves fan for my National League teams. I loved the whole, Glavine, Smoltz, Maddox combination and things like that. But I don't see them beating the Milwaukee Brewers in a 7-game series. And even though Milwaukee suffered a injury in their pitching rotation due to some silliness to a player punching a wall, apparently hurting his hand, I still think Milwaukee will be good enough to win that series at the very least. Again, their pitching staff, as far as the starting rotation, is still probably the best in baseball, if not the best just in the National League. Um, yeah, I'm still going to pick Milwaukee to win that series there. Then also starting on Friday is going to be the San Francisco Giants playing the winner of the National League wildcard game, which, as I predicted before, is going to be the Dodgers. So that's going to be a very heavily watched and probably a really good series as far as the National League divisional series at that between the Giants and the Dodgers. Um, and even though again San Francisco won the regular season, the division title, I still overall think the Dodgers are going to be a better team. I think they have the right key pieces to win this, and I think they are going to beat the Giants and move on to the National League Championship Series to play again the Milwaukee Brewers. So if you're keeping track at home in the Championship Series in the National League, I have the Dodgers playing the Brewers, and the American League, the White Sox playing the Tampa Bay Rays. Now, when it comes to the Brewers and Dodgers, this is where I think the Brewers are going to get caught. I think the Dodgers, again, like I said, against the Giants, they're going to be still the team to beat in the National League. I think they're going to beat Milwaukee, and the Dodgers will be the National League representative in the World Series. On to the American League. Chicago versus Tampa Bay. So, of course, these teams played in the regular season. It was a fairly even matchup in the 7 games they played. Actually, 6 games they played. I believe they split the series, so they're pretty even there. I go into the White Sox still having the best starting rotation in the American League, and I don't think that's going to be any different against the Tampa Bay Rays, have a good offense, but I believe pitching in the playoffs shuts down good offenses, and I don't think Tampa Bay is that good of an offense. I mean, they are. I mean, I'll give it up. I won't be an idiot, but I think they are. I still think the White Sox pitching will prevail, and the White Sox will be in the 2021 World Series versus the Los Angeles Dodgers as the American League champion. So now, here it comes. So we have the White Sox and the Dodgers in the World Series. The defending champion Dodgers versus the Chicago White Sox. So as I mentioned, the Chicago White Sox, I feel, have the best starting rotation, four-man starting rotation in the playoffs in the American League. The Dodgers, I feel like, probably are the best overall team in the entire playoffs from an offensive standpoint, and also pitching. Pitching may not be good as the White Sox, but their offense is pretty amazing. I'll give them that. As far as the White Sox offense, I don't think they're not as good as the Dodgers on offense. I'll concede that for sure. I do think they have very timely hitting. And with the pitching staff holding teams to, or at least most recently, holding teams to 2, 3, or 4 runs, the offense has a chance to jump in there, score their 3, 4, or 5 runs, and win the game. And the offense of the White Sox can definitely do that. Now, where the Dodgers are going to have the advantage is, even though the White Sox rotation as a whole is good, I think the pitching, the two particular starting pitchers for the Dodgers are the best two, will be the best two in that series. That's Max Scherzer and the pitcher whose name I don't want to butcher, so I don't even want to say it, but he's the 20 game winner. So they had the best two starting pitchers in that series, but I think overall for the 4-man, the White Sox take the cake on that. Now the Dodgers, of course, have home field because they won more games, and so this will be a lot tougher series for the White Sox. Obviously being the not having home field versus Tampa Bay or in the series against Houston, but this will probably be a lot tougher. Traveling from Chicago to LA, and not speaking from a town perspective, everyone loves going to LA, but for this, it could be a challenge. Um, I'm definitely open to revisiting this, seeing how the pitching matchups lie, who starts game 1, 2, 3, and 4 in that order, because obviously we're not going to know until that time, because this is going to be 2 weeks from now, of course. So, um, but everyone knows I'm a White Sox fan, and the problem with always making these predictions when every team's really good is knowing where to cut off your bias when it comes to being a White Sox fan versus reality. So I did struggle with this today in regards to what my official prediction was going to be. But at the end of the day, I kind of realized that it's probably a good idea to take the bias away at all and just look at the teams themselves. So when taking that away, I had to make the hard decision to come out and say who I really think is going to win the World Series this year between the White Sox and the Dodgers. And I do have to tell you, um, that of course it's gonna be the Chicago White Sox, baby. Of course. Did you really think I wasn't gonna pick my boys? My boys? Come on now. Best team in the American League, son. Yes, I'm saying it now. The Chicago White Sox will be your 2021 Major League Baseball World Series champions. Write it down. Mark it off at me. I don't care. I'm predicting it. Let's get it. Sorry, Dodgers. It's gonna be a good series. It's probably gonna go 7 games. That's fine. But guess what? It don't matter. It don't matter. White Sox, World Series. Represented, World Series champion Suns, Chicago all day, every day. Ain't no bias here though. I'm really picking them because I think their pitching staff again is the best. The bullpen has been shored up, which was a problem last year, of course. They have an experienced manager in the playoffs, a championship winning manager in the playoffs. Um, so so yeah, I still think it's the Chicago White Sox. So mark it down. 2021 World Series champions will be your Chicago White Sox. So I'll go ahead and cut the video off here. Spend 20 minutes, of course. But of course, we want to go ahead and say thank you guys for listening to the Cal Park Bros. We always thank you for that. Appreciate that. Make sure you keep doing it. Making sure you're listening, watching everything we do, whatnot. Um, so I'll go ahead and end the video here with everything we always say. Just make sure that when it comes to all things Cal Park Bros, make sure you like us, love us, share us, and follow us. Because if you like us, why wouldn't you?